Hello again, Strict Pub. Diablo Force open beta tests are almost here, and I've already started and been making some pre-launch Theorycrafts and sim builds that should be good for fresh into endgame characters when the game is here and launched. And I will keep making a few more before the game launches. I also plan to evolve them into fully fledged builds when the game is released and keep them updated when we have new seasons, new rebalance updates, and so on. And when I have more information, things like sockets, slots, socketable items, paragons, ancient gear, item affixes that can roll on every slot, and so many other things that I'm currently missing that should be good to know for a build to be complete. This is one such build for the Druid class called Storm Ward. And as the name suggests, it's all about thunder and lightning with a little lupine twist. Little bit information about the beta test, which will last for 72 hours ish, for two consecutive weekends, each weekend 72-ish hours, and it will let us reach level 25 and only let us play in the first act zone called Fractured Peaks. So again, those builds will not be that great for those level 25 characters, and would rather be useful for level 50, 60 plus characters that have the maximum skill points and some renowned skill points to begin with, to jumpstart their endgame post-story grind. But you can still use it in the beta as kind of an idea which skills go well together, with which ultimate. You won't have capstones, you will at least get to level up an ultimate in the beta. I've made two spreadsheets. One of the spreadsheets contains all those builds with shortlisted skills and passives that go well for the build. But they don't have all the active skills and they don't have every single passive on it. For those, there is a second spreadsheet, which is the skill trees spreadsheet. I have every class's skill trees there with all the active, all the passive skills, and you can kind of use them as semi-build calculators in a way to calculate your points spent. Some information I got is that in the closed beta, the maximum skill points you could get were 63, 4, or 5, around that number. So I tried not to use more than those points when making those builds, no more than 70. This one uses 63. So I hope you like it, buckle up and let's go. Let's start with the Stormward skill tree. To avoid confusion, I would start from the bottom, from the end, from the capstone. So as you can see, 63 skill points, and here we go. When I set up to make this build, I was like, okay, let's pick specialization. I picked Perfect Storm, and then I was okay, I want to build around Perfect Storm. There's another thing you could do: make a naturalist build, where instead of Perfect Storm, you're taking Nature's Fury, where you have to juggle Earth and Storm. But in this case, I decided to focus on Storm, and you'll see later with the items why Storm only, and why I took a certain shape-shifting skill as well. Well, it's not shape-shifting, but it counts as a kind of shape-shifting skill. This is the Bloodhowl. It does shape-shift you for a moment briefly, and you see why I took that one later. So Perfect Storm, your storm skills grant two spirits and deal a multiplicative increased damage when damaging a vulnerable, immobilized, or swallowed enemy. And vulnerable by itself make them take damage, but now even with immobilized and swallowed, they'll still take extra damage. After shapeshifting to a different form, I didn't take this, but I left it here if you feel like it's needed. But you only have one shapeshifting skill here, and it's on a cooldown of 15 seconds, so that's not that great. I still left it here. And this one, I didn't feel that it's good sacrificing points I've put elsewhere. Again, it's limited, but if we do have at least around 70 points, you have places where to spend them. Nature magic skills deal multiplicative increased damage to elites. A solid, lovely thing. Now, your earth skills, we don't care about that. Your storm skills deal multiplicative increased damage to enemies that are stunned, immobilized, or knocked back, which synergizes with this damage to immobilized, and pretty solid. And then there's options to put this here. Nature magic skills deal multiplicative increased damage, and nature means earth and storm. They both count as nature. But again, we have limited points, so I didn't put the 3 points here. If I did have extra, I probably would have for that extra damage. Cataclysm, our ultimate. Massive storm follows you around for 8 seconds. Tornadoes knock back enemies and lightning strikes wildly, dealing damage. Big chunky cooldown of 80 seconds. Ultimate after all. The duration is increased by 2 seconds to a total of 10. And then lightning strikes from Cataclysm make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. Now, another thing we have here, this one, definitely we don't need it. This one, we don't need it. I could have removed it. And I'll probably just leave it out like that. So it doesn't mess the calculation of the total points. Elemental exposure. Your storm skills have 20% chance to make enemies vulnerable for a second. I think this is lovely, and I'm not sure if the percent goes up for each point or the duration goes up. We have to see how this works. And whether 20% is at 1 point, 2 points, or at 3 points. Increase the duration of Hurricane and Cataclysm. Well, we're using both of them. This is Hurricane, this is Cataclysm, by 5%. 5% on Cataclysm is 4 seconds. Oh no, that's the duration, not the cooldown. So yeah, 5% on 8 seconds is very little, but if it's 15%, now we're talking. Now we have 1.2, if I'm not mistaken. But since this is the 2, I'm not sure if it increases the duration of the 8 seconds or the 8 plus 2. And if it's the 8 plus 2, that means 5% times 3 being 15, and then that's 1.5 seconds. In the worst case, it will be 15%. Actually, the worst case will be 5% with 3 points, which I don't think will be the case. But yeah, let's say 15% of 8, it's still not bad. Still worth maxing out. And even for Hurricane, it has, again, the same duration, 8 seconds. But again, this one gets 8 plus 2. This one's not that great. It's good if you have extra points, but I wouldn't prioritize it. Then Hurricane around you deals damage to nearby enemies for 8 seconds. Enemies who are damaged are swallowed, which synergize with our Capstone. And then it has chance to make the enemies vulnerable, or enemies who are in Hurricane's radius have their damage reduced. I decided to take this because Hurricane is around us. That means the enemies would be nearby, and we want to be a little bit tanky. Then we move on to companions. I didn't take a companion, which means I can take 2 of another type of skill. I chose 2 defensive. There are those passives. This one means when you're transforming back into human. So like after Blood, how you go back into human. But we don't have plenty of shape shifting to justify taking this, so we don't take it. But how shapeshift into werewolf and furiously how and restore ex-wife. Every 15 seconds you can kind of heal yourself, helps with survivability, reduces the cooldown by 1 second if you kill, and it doesn't have to be kill while you're blood howling. Obviously, every time you kill something, it reduces the cooldown, so you can keep healing yourself. I think it's a lovely synergy to keep us surviving, and you'll see later why I took a shapeshifting skill in a moment. Preserving blood howl. I don't think this is that great, considering this one can give us 20 spirit. But if you don't need the spirit, then take this. Remains to be seen how the spirit will be. Increase your non-physical resistance by 5%. If it's 5% per point, lovely. Even then, still put the points here. This one, take reduced damage for X seconds after using a defensive skill. Since we have 2 defensive skills, and we can time them. I'm not sure what the cooldown of this is, but it's probably no more than 20. It's nice. Cyclone Armor, winds protect you, granting 20% ranged damage reduction. And when an enemy in melee range hits you, there is chance for the winds to knock it back. Enemies who are knocked back by Cyclone Armor are also swallowed, synergized with our Capstone. And every 10 seconds, Cyclone Armor intensifies, reducing the next instance of non-physical damage by an additional 40%. Enemies knocked back by Cyclone Armor become vulnerable. So you have to decide, do you want this or that? I prefer this. for survivability. But if you don't need the survivability, obviously this one. Those, I mean, this one would be nice for us, but again, we won't be in werewolf form. This one is nice, extra crit chance against nearby enemies. But again, we have limited points. But if I did have extra 3 points, I wouldn't mind putting them for extra crit chance. Like, for example, you can remove this and this, and then you can get extra crit chance points. But that's only if you think you have enough spirit. For now, I've put them here. If you notice that you have plenty of spirit generation, you don't need those points then. Tornado. I love this skill. It looks fun. A vortex that moves outwards and curves in a random direction, dealing damage every second. Pretty annoying that it's random, but that's how it is with storms and stuff. Each time you cast Tornado, you have 20% chance to spawn an additional Tornado. And enemies damaged by Tornado are swowed, synergy with the Capstone, stacking up to X%. Or this one, each time an enemy is damaged by a tornado, they take increased damage from tornado for 3 seconds, stacking up to 15%. So you have to make a choice. Do you think you would rely on the tornado to stay around that one enemy? Or do you want to make sure you're swowing enemies to help with the build? We do have plenty of other ways to swow. That's why I decided to take this and maybe take that little bit of extra DPS here and there when it happens. Storm Strike, our generator. So you do damage. It splits between your target and up to 3 nearby enemies. And dealing damage with Storm Strike reduces your damage taken by 25% for 3 seconds. So you want to Storm Strike every now and then, not just to build spirit, but to also make yourself a little bit more tanky. And it has chance to make enemies immobilized. Synergy with ultimate, with the capstone. But I'd rather take this one. Chance to make enemies vulnerable. We have other ways to immobilize and so on, but vulnerable, we definitely want to do that. And let's talk about the legendary aspects. First, I'm gonna try to explain to people who are new. Everyone would be new, I guess, when the game is launched and the beta has started. So legendary aspects are special legendary affixes you find on items, on legendary items. So when there's a drop, when there's a drop from kills or wood of any type, there's a chance for it to be legendary and contain one such power on it, which is a strong build around me. Affix, you can move from one item to another. You can take it from one legendary item, put it on another legendary item, or you can take it from a legendary item, put it on a yellow item to promote it to legendary. So there's defensive, offensive, mobility, utility, resources as the 5 categories of aspects. Each category of aspect can only go onto certain things of items. For example, mobility can only go on boots and amulet. Amulet is in all categories. So amulets are an interesting sword with 50% effectiveness that lets you make that aspect a little stronger. Two-handed weapons, 100% effectiveness. Now that we've made this clear, there's another way to get aspects, and it's from finishing dungeons. But there is a catch. You'll see in a moment what that is. Let's say you go to Fracture Peaks, you finish the Forbidden City dungeon, kill the final boss. Then what happens at that moment is in the Codex of Power, which is a user interface, you will unlock a version of Nighthauer's aspect. But that version will contain the bare minimum roll. Always. So this 5% that can go to more than 5% chance. In the Codex of Power will always be 5%, but if you get it as a drop, it could be 6, 5.5, 7, or whatever the maximum is. So this is the catch with Codex of Power, but it's a great way to compensate for not having a certain item in a build and to just feel it. It's like a way to feel the setup. So it's not that bad to use the aspect if you feel like RNG is showing your middle finger. You can shove it up RNG's bumhole and tickle their tonsillitis with that finger. So yeah, over that, let's go over the recommended aspects. The aspects I've picked as best in SWAT. Now that everything this way is clear. Storm Beast in the helmet, Skinwalker chest, Storm Shifter gloves, Cyclonic Force pants, Ghost Walker boots, Shared Misery on the amulet. I've added some notes here. Umbro, ring 1, overcharge ring 2, Night Hour, first weapon or two-handed, one-hand weapon or two-handed weapon. I do recommend one-handed and off-hand so you can get an extra aspect, but I've written ways how you can mess around with the setup. An example sacrifice would be to sacrifice Iconic Force, which means Skinwalker goes here, Storm Shifter goes on the chest, and then Tempest goes here if you want to save Tempest. Or you can just sacrifice Tempest. Now let's go through all of them. I'm gonna start with Storm Beast and Umbro and then move to Misery. So Storm Beast, nice resource generator. Storm skills have up to 15% or more chance to grant 10 spirit. Your base storm skills are now also werewolf skills. It doesn't say basic, it says base. So that should mean every skill that is a storm skill as a base should count as a werewolf skill. Would it shapeshift you into a werewolf? Probably not, but it should still count as a shapeshifting skill and benefit from these 3% bonus levels that I'll show you in a moment. So this is great. Not only do we get resource generation, but we also get extra bonus levels by this combo here. Now, let's go to Umbro quickly. I want to talk to Umbro right before Shared Misery. So Umbro, again, restore resource when you crowd control an enemy. And this one, when you hit a crowd controlled enemy, there's chance for that crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected nearby enemy. So definitely this helps this generate. That's a nice synergy I like using. And I've put that into the amulet. So this 30% becomes 45% with the 50% effectiveness. Or more if you get a stronger version of it. After that, let's talk Storm Shifter. Storm Shifter again. While Hurricane is active, plus 3 to your shape-shifting skills. And Hurricane, as you remember, 8 seconds duration, 20 seconds cooldown. Not so bad to have extra damage, the extra levels to shape-shifting skills such as Bloodhowl, and every other storm skill should count as a shape-shifting skill. I wonder if Cataclysm will also count for as a storm skill that gets transformed into a shape-shifting skill and benefits from those 3 levels. Hopefully that's the case. Moving on to Cyclonic Force and Skinwalker aspect. Cyclonic Force is Cyclone Armor, also provides physical damage reduction. In addition, it will also be applied to all nearby allies. Very good for party play, but not completely necessary for the build. So again, you could sacrifice it and maybe move this one here, and then you have another thing you can put. You can work things out, move things from one place to another. There's things you can mess around with. Skinwalker, when you use a shape-shifting skill that changes your form, you gain life. If you are at full life, gain the same amount of Fortify. The key thing is this would change your form, and I believe this would be the only thing that changes your form. This already heals you, so this is already a skill you use to heal yourself, and now it will also heal you some more, and if you're already fully healed, you can fortify. And the catch here is, actually not the catch, the good thing here is you are reducing the Bloodhowl cooldown. So you can keep stacking fortify because this will keep reducing the cooldown when you're killing trash mobs quickly. And even if you're fully healed, it's still nice to just use Bloodhowl as much as possible to get that fortify happening. Now, another thing we want to talk about, Ghostwalker aspect. It's a shit hit the fan kind of mechanic. To escape, you move freely through enemies while below 40% life. If you end up getting surrounded, take a bigger bite and then you can chew, no pun intended here with the werewolf. Then this is good. And now let's talk about the offensive aspects. Overcharged. Overcharged is pretty solid. Lucky hit 10% chance when dealing lightning damage to overload the target for 3 seconds, and you're dealing lightning damage with all those storm skills, causing any direct damage you deal to them to pulse and additional damage to nearby enemies. Pretty great. Knight Hour, which is the one-handed or two-handed aspect. You get crit chance, and this crit chance will be doubled if you use two-handed. So if you sacrifice Tempest or whatever else you sacrifice to make room for it, to not use offhand, this gets double the crit chance. In addition, Budhau also affects companions and players, so this would affect allies, this will affect allies. So good for party play for sure. And having that extra crit chance and having that cooldown of Budhau constantly being reduced, you definitely want to keep using Budhau, not just because of this, but also because of that. And hopefully this thing makes you change form into werewolf when using storm skills, but I don't think that would be the case, and I think that's why they added this changes your form detail to prevent people from abusing this one with that one together. Hopefully the build is clear. If you have questions, the comment section is there. Ask me away. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer want to be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end, Struck Web. Keep it cool until next time, and goodbye.